Hi, I'm Megan. I'm a stained glass artist, and today I'm going to show you how I solder my stained glass pieces. So first up is supplies. First, you are going to need your foiled stained glass piece that is ready to be soldered. The next up, you are going to need your soldering iron. It's good to have a damp sponge as well so that you can wipe the iron off. Then you are going to need some solder, which I have right here, some flux, which I have right here, and something to apply the flux with. I just use an old toothbrush. I think that's it, so let's get to soldering. So this is the piece I am soldering today. I'm just gonna start off by putting some flux into a little bottle cap that I use, and then I'm gonna take my iron. I haven't used this in a while, and it's looking a little bit dingy. So I'm just gonna put it into some tip tinner. You don't have to use this. I could easily just like rub this on the sponge and it gets pretty shiny again. But because I haven't used it in quite a while, I am going to use some tip tinner here. And I'm just putting it in here and letting it kind of melt and coat the soldering iron. You can see here the tip is looking nice and shiny. I'm wearing a glove only on my left hand because this is the hand that is going to touch the flux. It's going to be touching chemicals. I do not want that on my skin. You can wear a glove on your other hand as well, but I know that I am only going to hold my soldering iron with that, so I'm just careful not to touch the chemicals with my right hand. So I'm gonna start by taking just a little bit of the flux. You really don't need much, and I'm coating all of the solder lines. And now I am just going to unroll some of the solder, and I'm going to hold the roll in my gloved hand, and I'm holding the soldering iron in my other hand. And my first step is I am going to go around the whole piece and I am going to solder any joints that are close to the edges so that that will stabilize the piece, and I can then take out all of the pins. So how I'm going to do that, I'm holding my solder up against the joint. I'm taking my iron and I just hold it on there. It melts and it falls onto the piece. I'm going to do the same down here on this joint. And the same over here. And you just want to slowly go around. So you can see this one isn't sticking very well. I probably don't have enough flux right there. So I am just going to grab a little bit more flux, put it on there, and then I don't need to add any more solder. You can if you want to, but I'm just going to put that right on there, and you can see that it kind of melted down really well. Now I'm going to go around and join any other joints on the piece. So that is most of the pieces joined. So now we can get to soldering the actual lines. I turned on my exhaust fan that is going to suck away all the bad fumes, so I'm not breathing it in. So I'm just going to do a little voiceover and explain what I'm doing. Essentially, you just hold the solder on top of the hot part of the iron and it will melt and flow off of the tip and onto the piece. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. As you can see here, I'm going over it multiple times to make it nice and smooth, and you can continue to do this throughout the piece. You can come back later on and go over things again. So I'm basically just dragging it along all of the solder lines until it looks decent. This is kind of my rough first go over. Then I'm gonna do the back after, and then I'm coming back to the front and I'm gonna make everything look really smooth and nice. Here is just another close-up. You can kind of see the solder on top of the iron melting off, and then I go back and forth over it to make a smooth line. The joints will sometimes look kind of freaky, so I just like to go over them like that, and you can see it looks nice and smooth. If you ever have a piece of solder that has fallen off and onto the glass, be careful, it could be hot. So if you don't want to pick it up with your fingers, you can just pick it up with the soldering iron and then you can drop it anywhere on the piece that you would like. So now that we have the front kind of roughly soldered, we are going to turn the piece over and do the back. So some of this could be hot, so just be careful when lifting it up. You're just gonna take it and just flip it over. We are going to repeat with the back side. While you are soldering, you can take your iron and just move it back and forth over a wet sponge, and this will just keep it nice and clean. If you have any extra pieces of solder that have fallen on the glass, you can just let them cool and flake them off with your fingernail. And if you have extra pieces of solder balls kind of left over, you can use those. So right here where I'm tapping, the solder's looking a little thin. Instead of using solder from the roll, I'm just picking it up from the side and putting it on. I'm still working on the back here, and I just want to smooth out any wrinkles or bubbles or uneven areas of solder. So I'm just holding my iron and gently tapping on areas that I want to smooth out. What you can also do is drag your iron along like I'm doing here, and the solder will melt and make a nice smooth line. Now that I'm done with the back, I'm going to flip it over to the front and go over all of my solder lines so the ones on the front look perfect as well. So that is how I solder my pieces. I'm not 100% done with this piece. I am going to twist some wire together and kind of overlay it and solder it on here to act as the rope. I still have to clean this piece, frame it obviously, but if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments.